Hi friends, it's Becky, and tonight I'm going to show you how to make these sweet little beaded links using some 11O seed beads, some 8O seed beads, and a 4mm bead, and some jump rings. I've got 5mm jump rings here, and this is a really small project that is very easy to do. I would say if you're new to bead weaving, this would be a really great first project because you're just going around in a couple circles and then across and then back, and that's all that we're doing. There's nothing super complicated about it. And then after we make the little bead woven part, we're just sticking some jump rings into the 8O seed beads on the edges so that we can connect them in a chain with some other jump rings and make a necklace. So I'm going to show you how to do this. The bead mix that I'm using for this is the Starseeds bead mix. It's one that Danielle Wickes just released on her site, and I've just made a different link with each color in that mix. There are 8 different colors. If the mix is sold out, Danielle has put together some individual tubes as a set of each of these colors. So I'll put links to Danielle's Etsy in the description below, as well as her pattern page, because there are a lot of other patterns that she's made using this bead mix. But yeah, so I've got the 11O seed beads. Those are what I'm using, are the ones from there. There's also these 8O seed beads, and I'm just going to pick one of these up and bring it a little bit closer so you can see it has this faceting on the edges. She was selling them under the name Meteorites, but they are just 8O seed beads. They're just 8O seed beads with some faceting. And so I'm using those. And then there are these 4mm fire polish beads, and you can substitute any 4mm bead in this design. You can use any seed beads, any 8O seed beads, any 11O seed beads, and any 4mm beads to get this design working. You could use a 4mm pearl or a 4mm gemstone, any of those things to make one of these little links that we're going to make today. Let's scooch in a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to be using some beading thread. I have some fireline. This is the 6-pound fireline. And I've already got it threaded because each of these components, you don't use very much thread on it. So I had just pulled off about a wingspan's worth and made a whole bunch of these links, and this is what I've got left. Because after I cut off one, I just went ahead and moved on to the next using the same thread without having to rethread my needle. If you're new to bead weaving, probably the hardest part, in my opinion, is threading the needle. If you are intimidated by the teeny tiny eye size on these, go ahead and use a large eye needle because that will work just fine for this design. I actually need to scooch out a little bit before we do anything right here. I've got a little drawing just to explain what I'm going to be doing with my thread, and I'll show you what I'm going to do and then I'll do it with you. So I just drew this out with some markers, and I'm going to be picking up all of these beads and going through the 11Os, the 8Os, the 11Os, the 8Os, the 11Os, 8Os, the 11Os, and 8O. And that's the first time that I pick it up. That's the first pass of my thread. And then to make it into a circle, I'm going to go through all of these one more time. So you can see that there. And then we're going to do another pass. And with that third pass in the circle, again, we're just going in circles. I'm going to go through these 2 11Os, and then I'm going to skip over one of the 8Os, and I'm going to go through this 11O, this 11O, this 8O, this 11O, this 11O, and then skip that 8O so that these two will like pop out on the edges, and I'll show you why as we get going. But then I'll go through this 11O, the 8O, to right here where this was my beginning thread, till I'm coming out the same side as that beginning thread is still coming out of. And then I'm going to go through the fire polish bead, the 4mm bead, across to the opposite 8O, go through that 8O, back through that fire polish bead, and then through this other 8O. And then then we're just going to tie a little knot right here. So that's just a description of what we are going to be doing with our little satellite that we're making. I decided to give it a little name. But yeah, again, this drawing's not to scale, just so you know where we're going with that. If you want to take a little screenshot of this, please feel free. All right, so that's what we're going to be doing. I just wanted to draw it out so that you'll know where I'm going as I'm going through here. So let me pull out some beads because I did each of these as a specific color. Let me just grab these green beads. There are several different colors in here. There's 8 different colors. You've got these like dark green beads. You've got these teal beads that are kind of matte colored. You've got some light blue. You've got some really romantic light pinks. You've got some maroon beads or fuchsia beads. I'm not sure quite what it is, but it's clear, but it's fuchsia lined. So it's got like the pink on the inside of it. So it's really, really cool. So I'm going to need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I need 8 of the 11O seed beads. I'm just going to scooch these guys out of the way so that it doesn't confuse the camera while I am picking up beads. All right, so I've got my thread. I'm going to pick up 2 11O seed beads, 1 8O, 2 11Os, 1 8O, 2 11Os, 1 8O, 2 11Os, and 1 8O. What I want to have is 4 repeats of that 2 11O 1 8O pattern. So I've got a total of 4 8Os on my needle with 8 11Os, starting with the 11Os and ending with an 8O. Once I've got those on there, I'm going to scooch it down almost to the end of my thread. I'm going to make sure I'm pinching the end of my thread right here so that my beads don't come off. You can use a stop bead if you want, but I find that I don't really need it if I just make sure I'm pinching that the end of my thread right there. I'm going to go back through all of these, going in the same direction that my thread is already going through, and you can go through just a couple of them at a time, or if you can angle it right and go through like all of them at once, that can be pretty fun. But you want to make sure that it actually goes through all of them and doesn't just pop out. I'm going to go ahead and go through those real quick and see how it turns it into a circle when we start doing that. Now I want to go through these other ones down on the side so that I've ended up going through all of the beads twice. And I'll be coming out of this 8O right next to where my start thread is, my tail. When it gets loose like this, I'm just going to lightly pinch, not hard, just lightly pinch so that the beads don't go, but the thread does, and that just tightens it up a little bit, just like that. When you tighten up your thread when you're bead weaving, always remember to pull on the thread, not on the needle, and that way you won't snap your thread while you're working on it. Now, if you remember on my little drawing, now that I've gone through here twice, I'm going to be going around one more time, and this time I'm going to be skipping 2 of the 8Os, but they're the ones on opposite sides of each other. So I'm coming out here, so I'm going to go through the next 2 11Os, skip that 8O, next 2 11Os, 8O, 11Os, skip that 8O, 2 11Os, and the 8O. So let's do that now. All right, so I'm going through those next 2 11Os. Bloop. And I'm going to skip that 8O. I'm not going to sew through it with my needle. I'm going to go through the 2 11Os next to it. And when I tighten that up, it kind of pops it out a little bit. And it makes it so that this little bead hole stands up away from the work. And that's what's going to make it so that I can put my jump ring through it more easily when I turn this into a link. All right, so now I'm going to go through that 8-0 and the next two 11-0s. And then I need to skip this next 8-0 because it's the one on the opposite side of the circle from the one I already skipped. So I'm going to skip it and not sew through it. And I'm going to go ahead and sew through those next two 11-0s and the 8-0 so that I'm coming out of the 8-0 next to my first thread. And you might see that the bead doesn't pop out on its own, so you might need to kind of pull it out with your needle a little bit and then pull on your thread to tighten it. Boop, like that. And now you can see that hole pretty clearly, which means it's going to make it so much easier when we put our jump ring through it. And this is the part where we're going to add our 4mm bead. I'm just trying to move this out of the way. So I'm coming out of this 8-0 here, and I'm going to sew into this 8-0. Before I do that, I'm going to put my needle through my 4mm bead. And again, I'm using fire polish, but you can use any 4mm beads that you've got. And I'm going to go through the 8-0. So I'm coming out of the left side of this bottom 8-0. So I'm going to go into the left side of this top 8-0. And when I pull this tight, it's going to pop it right into place right there. So I'm coming out of the right side of this 8-0. I'm going to go back through that fire polish bead and into the right side of this 8-0 on the opposite side. And that's it. That is all the bead weaving that you need to do on this. Now there's not a lot of room for weaving your ends of your thread through the work, so I'm just going to tie it in a knot in order to secure it. A lot of times if you're going to be doing some bead weaving and you want to not have to knot your thread, you'll like zigzag and go back through the work a couple of times. But with this and that was, it's like a square knot, but on this second pass, I'm going to wrap this around twice, and that makes a surgeon's knot. I just feel more secure with those. That's just me. All right, so now I've got my little knot. The bead weaving part of this is done. And like I said, they're simple, they're quick, they're fairly easy once you get the hang of it and get into a rhythm. You can knock out like several of them in an evening. And now that I've got my little pokey outy ends there of my thread, I'm just going to burn those down. This is made of nylon, so it'll just melt right there. If you have a thread burner, you can use that instead of a lighter. That's fine. All right. So now I'm going to need some jump rings, and I'm going to use my handy dandy chain nose pliers to open and close them. And I actually just got these bent nose pliers. These are the Casual Comfort ones. I got some bent nose pliers, so I'm probably going to be using those a lot more in my tutorials. All right, so you just hold it and swing it open, and then thread that through that hole that we exposed by skipping that bead. Close it up. Just gonna rotate that wonky bit into the 8-0. There we go. That's not wonky anymore. All right. Oh, that's not open wide enough. All right. So there I go. I've got my guide. guys, I've got these, and so all you have to do to put these together is just use some more jump rings, and you can make a chain out of them. So I've got these guys here already connected, so I'm just going to take the end of this chain, these two on it, add these next two links, and then grab myself a clasp to attach to one of these ends. And I will have made myself a little necklace. But yeah, there's tons of other designs that Danielle has already come up with for the speed mix. They look really fun and cool and cute, and I am probably going to be making some. I especially like her bracelet that starts with herringbone on each end, and then you just string it across, especially since I've got some larger beads that I can add to that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do that one. But that'll probably be a this weekend when I'm just relaxing kind of a project. All right, let me scooch out just a little bit. This is a very, I feel it's got a real 90s vibe necklace to it. I'm not doing a pendant or anything, just because I want to just wear it with the little string of flowers around the neck. Let's get a lobster clasp. There we go. And I'm just going to add, I'm using gunmetal color findings, gunmetal color jump rings and clasp, because they go really well with like these like hematite kind of colors. Hematite whiteys. Not quite, I know. It's fine, it's getting late. All right. Let me measure how long this is, because I have just used 3 of each color of these links for this necklace, which means there's 24 links. Let me see exactly how long that is, just so that you'll know how long this gets. Unless my tape measure got picked up and moved somewhere else. I think it's about 18 inches. Pretty sure it's about 18 inches. Let's see, this is about, yeah, that's about 18 inches with 24 of these. They could be, let's see, will this go around twice? Maybe. You could do it as a bracelet as well if you didn't want to make 24 of these. But I like them. I think they are super cute and they are super adorable and they're super easy. So if you have been intimidated by the idea of bead weaving, but you've got some beading thread and some 11/0s and some 8/0s and some fire polish beads, go ahead and give this a try. See how you do with it. See how you like it. And because again, it's just sewing in little circles and then going back and forth across it. That's it. Not too complicated. All right, and I will put those links in the description below so you can check out Danielle Wickes' Etsy site and her pattern site where you can pick up patterns for the rest of the of this bead mix. If you're new to my channel, hi, welcome. If you like what you see, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Happy beading.